Welcome to my tutorial for Peng Adventures. And this is the PS4 version, but this is on, I think, a few different platforms. Which I will cover all that in my review, which I should have up pretty soon. But yeah, this is pretty much an arcade-style game. It does save after each stage you beat, so you don't have to replay the whole game or anything like that. It's pretty much one stage at a time, and it saves in the tour mode, which is the main mode. That's where you're going to have all the main stages, and you'll have bosses, and then there'll be a final boss where you can beat the game. So this game is basically a sequel to the Buster Brothers games, which you may be familiar with. They were pretty popular games that were on, old 16-bit platforms and I believe arcade. I have played some of them, but never beat any of them. They're actually pretty hard. I think they have limited continues, the original games, which would be cool to work on more in depth in the future, but I've never really spent a lot of time on them, but they do seem like good games. This one is great, though. This one I thought was really, really good. And the main idea is that you shoot out these spears, and while the spear is still out, it's able to pop the bubbles. So one of the main things that you have to learn with this game is being able to switch sides really accurately. And you can also unlock some special weapons that you can pick up, like power-ups on the field. And the only goal is to clear all the bubbles in each stage, aside from the boss stages where you have to defeat the bosses, but that's about it. But some of the stages are pretty tough. I believe this game took me a little bit over 4 hours to beat, so it was pretty challenging. I did have to redo some of the stages because I did lose a recording, but that was about it. Sometimes the recording is a little glitchy on PS5 or PS4, but I was using a PS5 when I played this. The game starts out very simple, though, very easy in the beginning. There's not going to be much strategy except for just, popping all the fucking bubbles, and that's about it. But it doesn't take too long for the game to get more challenging. Now in this version, I edited out all the failed attempts on all the stages. And I edited out pretty much all the cutscenes, just to make the video short and to the point. But it does cover all the stages and all the bosses. A lot of times you can break some of the bricks using your spear, and sometimes that will release some power-ups in some of the stages. So sometimes that's a good way to get some of the power-ups. See, as you can see, sometimes weapons drop. Now, most of the stuff is just for points, but there are shields and more powerful weapons. The shield is really good. It lets you take an extra hit, which you can use to pull some bullshit and get in, really aggressively to take them out. You're also on a timer, which becomes one of the harder parts of the game. Is sometimes it's tough to pop all the bubbles within the time limit. But you're not going to see that this early in the game. It's going to be very easy on this first world. I believe there's 5 worlds. And each one has 15 stages, followed by a boss. So there's pretty much 16 stages in each one. Because you have, your 15 regular stages, and then there's always a boss. But the boss is a separate stage and a separate checkpoint. So, you don't have to beat the previous stage or anything to fight the boss again. Most of the boss fights I found to be pretty easy. Some of them were a little challenging, but the final boss is quite difficult. That one took me the longest. So that may take some practice. But these initial stages should be pretty easy to get through. I'll definitely have some specific strategies on some of the other harder stages that I spent some time on, though. These ones were kind of just, they went by fast and I barely remember them, so I don't really have much to say aside from general strategies. And one of the big general tips in this game for me was getting good at switching sides really quickly. I ended up using an arcade joystick for this game, which I really liked, but it's totally optional. But the responsive Sanwa buttons are pretty much like immediately responsive without any delay, so that's a benefit for shooting out the spears. I even set it to turbo, which was good on some stages, but other stages, turbo didn't really work. And one of the reasons is if you're using a rapid fire function on the buttons, there's one weapon that won't work because it requires you to hold the button down and not rapidly tap it. So for the stages that have that weapon later on, you pretty much don't want to use rapid fire for those. And there is a lot of those stages near the end of the game. I believe it's mainly in the final world that becomes an issue, though, if I remember right. Now, there are enemies in this game, as you can see, but they don't really hurt you. But what will happen is some of the enemies will have attacks, and if the attack hits you, it'll usually stun you. But I don't think any of the enemies can outright kill you. And there is no health bar. It's one-hit deaths in the game. But the enemies don't actually hurt you, as far as I can remember. And the only way to not have a one-hit death is to have a shield. And sometimes you can chain multiple shield pickups if you plan it right, or get lucky, depending on the stage. But for now, the main new item that we just saw here was the hourglass, which slows time down for maybe 5 or 10 seconds. And I believe sometimes on some of the later levels, the hourglass only works for maybe a few seconds. I think it may be tweaked for certain stages. At least that's the way it seemed when I got farther into the game. But it's better to take one side out first instead of having all the fucking balls going crazy, at the same time. That's a good strategy for a lot of the game. Usually you want to focus on one section at a time if the level lets you do so. So you see I took out the left side first before unleashing everything on the right side. And that's a good general strat, is trying to isolate things, you know what I mean? Try to isolate the bubbles. Now these enemies will dive at you, but you can also shoot them, and I believe you can take them out. I think you have to shoot them while they're diving at you to kill them. Otherwise, you'll just you won't take them out. I don't think they get hurt unless you interrupt. You have to counterattack them while they're diving at you with your spear. I think that's how you take them out. See, I think that one was about to charge at me. That's why it got killed. See, I don't know if that connected. I think that's what I remember doing on these guys. But as you can see, I was basically taking out one section at a time. I wasn't trying to take out all the bubbles at once, I wasn't trying to unleash too much shit on the stage. Because the more of those things you have bouncing around, it can become sometimes impossible to survive as far as I can tell. Where, even if you're really good at switching sides, I think there's certain scenarios where you just may not be able to even survive in certain stages. Now, this is still very early in the game, so I don't think we're seeing anything too crazy this early, but it's still better to get used to trying to isolate the sections and take them out when you can. I don't even know why those crabs are there, because they don't seem to affect anything. Because the barriers that they are behind are actually, unbreakable barriers, so I don't know how they would even become a problem. So now we have a stage that's a little tricky here, where you have a lot of these things to manage, but they do give you a few shield pickups. If you notice, destroying the balls sometimes will drop power-ups in certain stages. So each stage has certain different things that happen. Sometimes the bubbles will drop power-ups, and sometimes breaking parts of the walls will drop power-ups. It kind of varies. Sometimes it's both. So this is the first boss. Now for this guy, all you got to do is focus on taking out the bubble that's coming out of the tentacle. It's kind of just staying on the tentacle. You want to try to take those out. Once you take out one tentacle, it switches to the other one. And then after you take that one out, I believe you're just going to have to finish off the eye in the center when it tries to attack you. You can pretty much ignore a lot of the bubbles. I mean, defend yourself if needed. But aside from that, you can just shoot at this eye here in the center. I believe just when it's open, you can hit it. Maybe I think that's how it works. You only have to hit it 3 times to destroy it. So that's pretty much it. This is pretty negligible in this first stage. It's not too difficult. You can ignore a lot of the bubbles or just, take them out as needed, but you can kind of just run around and ignore most of them. Later on, you may have to take them out more aggressively on some of the harder ones. So this is a pretty typical stage. It is getting to a point where, you're going to have to start to learn how to switch sides pretty good now, because now we're going to be dealing with a lot more of these things bouncing around. But in this one, you get a flamethrower, so, get those flamethrowers and break the blocks so that you can get the, the balls to come down. But try to take out one section at a time instead of unleashing them all at once. The flamethrower is the best way to eliminate those, though. So try to get those. The weapons, most of them do have limited ammo. I think they all have limited ammo, but there's multiple pickups a lot of times. The Gatling gun is very good, as you can see. It's worth just getting that, and you can clear out this stage pretty fast. There are some bombs, but you can just blow them up. And if you hit them at the right time, you can take out a lot of the bubbles as well from the bombs, which you'll be doing a lot of that later in the game. So you got a shield here. I think there's always shield pickups in this stage. They give you a generous amount, it seems, so I think you can keep the shield going for a while if you are, aggressive with picking up the shields. And the flamethrower is very good, too. I think one of the challenges of this stage is trying to destroy everything within the time limit. Might be a little tricky from what I remember. But I don't remember this being one of the hard stages. But yeah, just use the flamethrower and the shields. This one is quite easy. You have these hourglasses to freeze everything, and you have plenty of flamethrowers. Now remember, when you freeze everything with the hourglass, you can be placed right on the bubbles, and they won't even be able to hurt you until the timer runs out. So you're completely invincible during that phase when you activate the timer. So just remember that, and you can be really aggressive that way. So here we have more of these bomb things, but see, when you activate one, it kind of changes and takes out everything in that center area. So you just got to finish up a few of these. Very easy stage. You can also fire through the gaps as needed. It's an interesting mechanic with your base weapon because it kind of lingers on the screen for a little while. And that's what you're going to use to take out the bubbles when it comes down to switching sides really rapidly. You're going to kind of rely on that little lingering effect so that you can switch sides rapidly and just use that lingering effect to take out the balls. But you got to become good with switching sides. You're seeing some of that here where I'm rapidly switching sides to kind of defend from all this. The game does start to test you on that skill by this point in the game. And I believe this stage is pretty tricky. I think this is one of the harder earlier ones. And it's just a matter of switching sides very effectively and getting good with that mechanic. It makes sure that you're pretty good with that because you're going to be using that a lot. And that's just going to come with practicing the game pretty much, getting used to switching sides quickly. There's not much I can say about that aside from just getting good at that skill. They give you plenty of power-ups and shit here, and this was a pretty easy one to clear. So this is another one that's pretty easy. They give you a lot of time. And there's a lot of power-ups that you can get out of these birds. So, between the shields and the rapid-fire guns, this is a pretty easy one. The points are pretty much useless unless you are trying to beat the game on 1cc without any deaths or something. Then I guess you could go for score maybe. But there's also a score attack mode and some other shit, based around that kind of survival, scoring, and all that kind of shit. So, your first time playing, you're not going to be able to 1cc this, I really doubt. This one's not too hard. These things are moving pretty slow. And you can see that other stage where you really had to switch sides rapidly because it was fast and very difficult. This is a joke compared to that. So if you've gotten this far, you shouldn't have any trouble with this stage. But there will be some new mechanics and some new things to go into, some new strategies. This one's pretty easy as well. Just be aggressive, and it's kind of copying the old Centipede and Millipede games from the old arcade days. But it's quite easy. You get a flamethrower, you can really take them out fast. So, try to get the flamethrower whenever you can. You have to kind of cut a gap through those enemies before you can get the flamethrower to drop down. But once you do that, very easy. So here they're trying to get you a little bit more familiar with the bomb mechanic because it is used quite a bit in the game. The way these things work is they're on a number, and they do count down automatically, but if you want to speed up the countdown on each one of those bomb bubbles, you got to shoot it. Each time you hit it, you'll knock it down a number. So you can rapidly knock down the numbers and get it to explode prematurely, and you can use that in very strategic ways. So here they give you quite a bit of power-ups, but it is a pretty aggressive stage with a lot of fast-moving shit, obviously. The power-ups are going to make it a lot more manageable. Because remember, in that previous stage, we didn't really have any power-ups. We had to do it with just the regular spears and really switching sides quickly. And that was a lot harder. This, it's a little challenging, but it shouldn't be bad with all the power-ups. Switching sides is more of a thing with the base spear weapon, where you really have to be able to switch sides quickly to keep yourself alive, because it kind of lingers in the air for a little while. And during that time is when you can switch sides and take out another ball on another side. Remember, you can only shoot one spear at a time, so you really got to be good at, as soon as that spear connects, you're allowed to shoot another spear. So this stage is tricky as well. You just have to try to be aggressive and switch sides quickly to take everything out. You may want to counter those shell diving enemies as well and take them out because they can be a pain in the ass. So now you have your second boss. Not much harder than the first boss, but a little trickier. You do get Gatling guns, though, on this stage, which make it pretty easy to take out the tentacles. Again, you have to take out the bubbles that appear on the tentacles. Those little permanent bubbles that appear is what you need to take out. You want to watch out for that slime that drops down. I think it slows you down. I don't think it kills you, but it can fuck you up. Once you take out both tentacles, again, now you just have to take out the exposed eye 3 times. You see, that green shit just slows you down, but it can be a nuisance. But this was quite an easy boss, especially with the Gatling gun and shit. I think it's probably easier than the first boss, if I remember right. So now you're introduced to a pretty difficult bubble to deal with. It shoots lightning every time you hit it. So this first stage is getting you accustomed to the new type of bubble. And these do become very dangerous in certain stages. Of course, this one is easy because it's giving an introduction. It's basically trying to show you that every time you land a hit, move to the left or right, because you'll get bolted by that electric bolt that comes out when you connect with it. But you do have enough time to move out of the way. Now here you have these thunder clouds that kind of obscure your vision if you hit them. They will create a cloud that kind of blocks your vision for a little while. And that can make it hard to see what's going on with with when you're connecting with the lightning bubbles. Because of course you do have to make sure to move left or right every time you connect with the lightning bubble. So if you don't do that, you will die. But this stage is easy as long as you're paying attention to when you connect. Just as a good habit, when you fire it out, even if you don't know if it's going to connect, just move left or right anyway, just to be safe. If you're having trouble with that, it's good to just move every time you fire anyway. It's kind of good to do that in the game anyway, as a general, rule. But especially once you get to these things. Now remember, whenever you get a weapon, if you use one of your special weapons that you pick up on these lightning balls, then they won't drop the lightning. So that's a huge thing to realize with those things. So don't be afraid to take them out rapidly if you have a gun. Now this gun has to actually reload after so many shots. So just be aware of the reload animation, which will mean that you can't fire for a little while. But it will reload automatically. You just can't fire for a little while. So be aware of those little gaps. But yeah, anytime you can get any kind of power up, like see this blaze weapon or any kind of powered up gun that's not the base gun, it will allow you to shoot these lightning balls without having to worry about the bolt coming out. So that's how you can take them out very fast. Now it says you got to protect that thing in the middle, but I don't know if you really have to protect it. I don't know if you'll fail if it gets destroyed. I'm pretty sure I've had those things get destroyed before. Maybe it's a bonus or something, more points or some shit. I'm not sure. You definitely don't have to protect all of them, though. But for the most part, I never really concerned myself with those things, so I don't think they really matter. But yeah, anytime you can get any kind of power weapon, even if it's not a very good power weapon, it's going to be good to take out those things, because you don't have to worry about the lightning. So yeah, these things pretty much just cross each other constantly, and they don't go down to where you're at. So this is a very easy stage. Just keep in mind that you're going to want to use power weapons whenever you can, just to avoid the lightning bolts. But if you only have your regular spears, then just move out of the way. That's all. It's very easy. You don't have to worry about them going down to where you're at. So all you got to do is be aware of the lightning that comes out if you're using your regular weapon. Same type of thing here, except now you actually have to worry about these things hitting you, so it is more aggressive. It is kind of dangerous. But like I said, try to get those power weapons so you can clear them out. And you should be able to take them out fast with the power weapons. You even get shield in this stage, so it's really not too hard. There are some enemies that will try to stun you, which can be a problem. If you get stunned, you'll probably die, because there's a decent amount of enemies on screen. So you're probably going to get hit and killed. So this one is pretty much same type of thing. Try to move left and right every time you shoot out a spear. Don't even look to see if it connects. Just move. And that's probably the safest way to do it. Anytime you can get any of those power-ups, you're going to want those. You can take these things out a lot faster. So there's not any really major changes in the strategies as of yet. So here you have a pretty clear divide between the two sections. So it gives you like a safe spot to kind of hang out while you're getting your weapons or whatever you need to do. But once you have one of the power weapons, try to take these things out as fast as possible as they're moving up and down. Get in and out and try to take a few shots each time. Because the timer is a little tight here, so you do want to be aggressive. You can shoot those fairies, but I think they only give you some points or some shit, which is not too useful. If you can take out those enemies when they're diving down at you, though, then it's good to get rid of them, because they can be a pain in the ass. But that's really about it. Just be aggressively, getting in multiple shots each time these things go up in the air. You only have to clear out the bubbles. You don't have to clear out the enemies. So it's only if the enemies are causing you a problem you may want to take them out. This stage is pretty easy because you can just release these things in sections. You don't have to release them all at once, obviously. So you can kind of take your time, and you can use the bombs to clear out some of them as well. So shoot the bombs while they're up at the top. Very easy stage. So this one, you can get some power-ups early on by taking out either the left or right side. So, take out either the left or right side first to get some power-ups. And if you can get a shield, that's really good. And try to take out as much of this shit as you can, with the shield. And, then switch over to the other section on the other side and get some more power-ups again to get your shield back. Or get your power weapon back, whichever. Obviously, if you can get a shield and a power weapon, that's going to be the best. So now we're introduced to a new mechanic of these purple little walls that you can go into that protect you. It's like a shielded safe zone, pretty much. So just go in and out of the safe zone and take shots when you can, but be aggressive. Try to get the power weapons. Get the hourglass to slow everything down, obviously. You have to do it pretty fast. That's the main challenge of this stage, is that they put you on a short timer. So you're going to see I'm cutting it pretty close here. But it's really not that hard. This is pretty much more, a similar type of stage. You can kind of section these things off and try to clear out one section at a time, though. If you can get one of the balls just in one of the 3 sections, it makes it easier. As you can see, pretty damn simple. It's okay if you take a hit if you're being aggressive, as long as you can, survive overall. Sometimes you want to take the hit because the timers can be really short on some of the later stages, so sometimes it's better to be aggressive. So here the idea is to use some of these bombs to do some good damage. If you can shoot them at the right time, you can take out a decent amount of these things. If not, it's definitely going to be, more of a challenge. I didn't get any good groups or anything with the bombs, I don't think. But I do think it helped. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. I think you have to take out the bombs, too. I didn't realize that the bombs counted as enemies. But I guess it's a specific type of bubble, so I guess it counts. So here, you can kind of stay on one side first and work on one side at a time. You want to get the power-ups, obviously, so you don't have to deal with the lightning. Again, I think it's kind of optional to protect these things, but you may want to try to protect them. So now we have our third main boss. So I'm usually pretty aggressive at taking out the tentacles. I think there's more tentacles this time to deal with. But it's not much different. The big change here is that occasionally you have to watch out for you'll have like a few of these lightning, bubbles. So that does make it a little trickier. If you hit a lightning bubble, you got to be aware that it's going to shoot the bolt out if you don't have a powered up weapon. So they add that to the mix. And there's a few more tentacles, so it may take a little longer, but still pretty easy. A lot of times I just found it better to dodge them than try to take them out because I didn't really want to deal with the lightning. It was easy enough to get between them, so most of the time that's what I did. So here, when the eye is open, especially when it's trying to attack, I think that's the main time to try to hit it. And just got to hit it 3 times. I believe it's 3 times. It is cool that they added bosses to the gameplay. The boss fights are pretty good. So here you have a new power-up, some kind of claw weapon. I think what the claw does is it latches on and stays for a while until something hits it. I think that's what it does. Though I'm not completely sure. But the idea here is to just work your way down and break the walls and try to get all the balls to where they're trying to follow you down here and just take them out as they come towards you, and use the gaps to take them out. That's about it. It's a very easy stage. You have to do it kind of quick, though, but it's pretty easy if you run down and just take them out as you're moving down. And this one's really not too complicated. Really nothing new here. But yeah, the lightning bubbles pretty much follow throughout most of the game once they're introduced. So they can be irritating. But we've definitely dealt with some harder stages. So, actually, I believe this, if I remember right, this was the easiest world in the game. Maybe even easier than the first world. Or, if not, it's probably about as easy as the first world. At least that's how I remember it. I remember this being the easiest of all the worlds by far. I think I blazed through this shit pretty quick, from what I remember. I remember it being a lot easier than some of the previous stages. And I don't think there was a single hard stage in this whole ice world, if I remember right. So this should be a kind of like a free fucking kill, pretty much. Nothing really new being introduced here, so really nothing to explain. But you can get those hourglasses if you want to make it easier. But really nothing new being introduced. I think this is kind of designed as kind of like a little, relaxing break or something. Maybe that they wanted to pace it so that it gives you a little bit of a, false sense of security. But it does get pretty hard later on. But the game doesn't get much harder than what you've experienced so far. Some of the, one of the earlier stages that I mentioned, I don't remember which one it was, but that was one of the harder stages in the game for me. So, and that was in maybe the second or third world. So, pretty early on. So if you were able to complete that, you'll probably be able to complete everything else that's in the game. The final boss, would be probably the hardest part. But it's not too bad once you get in a rhythm with it. It's just a longer fight. Same kind of thing here, switching sides quickly. And you could use the hourglasses if you wanted to, but I didn't even need them because, we've already dealt with much harder, faster, sections. So I didn't bother. But yeah, in this one, just use the hourglasses and the flamethrowers and Gatling guns and just fucking destroy everything. Like I said, as long as the timer's activated, you can just step right on the bubbles and, shoot them with no problems. You get a pretty long time freeze here. I had like 15 seconds. I don't know if that was cumulative because I picked up multiple of them or if each one gives you like 15 seconds. I'm not sure. Let's see. Maybe if I grab another one, I'll see. I think I usually wait, but very easy. Use the bombs and the hourglasses to take out all this shit. Like I said, this is pretty much like a free world, as far as I can tell. From what I remember. This one again is very easy. It is a little bit fast paced in the beginning. You can get killed pretty fast in the beginning, but once you start clearing these things out, it becomes very easy. You got timer. Time stopping things and shit. Flamethrower. So I think now the TNT is a new little item. And that just explodes and breaks shit up. I think it explodes the whole screen and kind of breaks up all the bubbles. I don't think it matters where the TNT lands. I don't think you can, blow it up in a certain area to destroy bubbles in that area. I think it just blows everything up on the whole screen and kind of splits the larger bubbles. But very easy stage. So those 3 giant balls do break up into a lot of little balls. But again, you get a lot of power-ups. So this really shouldn't be too difficult. But the game will go back to normal difficulty after this stage, after this whole world is done. So now we have another new little thing here with these lava bubbles. So the idea here is to try to drop them in the correct spot like that. And you see, if you do it right, you can eliminate most of them in a few shots. So, try to get them all to drop in the center like I did there. And it should make that stage very easy. Same type of thing here. Just remember, if you do step in the lava, it is an instant death. Unless you have a shield, then you can, take the hit. But I don't know if they give you any shields in this stage. I don't think they do. So the idea is to make it easier, is to try to drop the lava on those things to make it faster. Because they don't give you a lot of time to take out all that shit. So they want you to use those lavas to take out, a lot at once. Now you get another new weapon here, the throwing star. So just grab it and just spam the shit out of it. And that should be good enough. I had a lot of time left. So all I did was pretty much spam the throwing stars. I was a little sloppy here. I was cutting it kind of close, but very easy. So yeah, now here they give you a bunch of weapons and shit again. So just, use all the various weapons. Throwing stars, time stopping, you got flamethrower, you got a lot of shit. The ones in the upper area might be a little trickier to reach. I don't remember exactly how I reached them, but we'll see in a minute. Okay, I guess, yeah, if I remember right, the way this game works is the balls kind of have like this, on some stages anyway, they have this AI where they kind of follow you. You have to lure them out by moving to one side or the other. So I think what I did there was I was moving, to the opposite sides, and I think that lured them to come out, if I remember right. I think sometimes you do have to lure them out of certain areas where they won't come out. So if you're having a problem with that on a certain stage, try moving one of the extreme sides of the screen to try to get them to come out. This is another easy stage, with all the power-ups they give you. So now we have another boss. I think this one focuses more on the bombs, but you can use the bombs for some extra damage, but you don't even need to use them. You can just do what you've been doing. Just try to either avoid them or use them to your benefit. If you can group them together, you can take out multiple bombs at once, which is good for a few reasons. It'll probably damage the boss if the boss is in the area, and it will also clear the area so you can move around easier. But you could try to avoid the bombs if you want, either way. But it does seem good to try to use them on the boss when possible. Get the shields, obviously. Sometimes the bombs just hit the boss, and I'm not sure why, but I've noticed that sometimes they detonate on the boss. It's probably because they run out, the timer runs out on them. It can be a little dangerous. As you see, I took a hit here, but I had the shield. But they do give you a decent amount of shields, too, so. Now, that might be kind of random, but I didn't really have a big problem with this boss. Didn't take long to beat. I don't remember if I beat this one on the first try, but, if not, it was close. Just try to avoid the shit pretty much and, get the shots in when you can. You don't want to get cornered, so, just be aware and, move out of the corners. So, again, you only have to hit the eye 3 times. I think the main time to try to hit it is when it's actually shooting at you. So try to get the shot in. You don't want to stand there for more than a second or two because it will fire out, a beam. So you don't want to stand there for too long. You just want to take your shot real quick and get out of there. But if the beam is about to land, obviously don't run into it and try to take the shot. But yeah, very easy. Yes, so this one starts out kind of aggressive. But they give you the shotgun, which is a new weapon, so, use that to take out that shit pretty fast. And it's really not too hard with those shotguns they give you. The shotgun has a nice spread, and it can take out, a nice range. So, as you can see, it takes out a lot of shit. It's really powerful. It doesn't go all the way up to the top of the screen. It's a short-range weapon, but it clears out a wide range of those things. It'll just take them completely out. So, just use that to clear everything out, quickly. So yeah, here you want to get the hourglass and then move into that area as fast as you can to take out, one side first. So I took out the left side of balls, basically. Now get the right one and, take out the remaining. It's pretty much the other half of the balls. That's the way I did it. And then you may have to take out a few without the timer, but it should be easy by that point. The springs are also new, I believe. So you're going to be using the springs for platforming in the game at certain points. So here you can use the springs to get some more power-ups. Just be aggressive with the power weapons and the timers. You should be able to take everything out. You see I had a lot of time left. It was pretty easy. So here you got to take a little bit of a risk and jump up in that gap and get some shots off, but hopefully you'll get a power-up drop. If you're about to get killed, then try to run into that little safe area where you can drop down. You can't shoot through that pink barrier, so you do have to go up and actually kill shit. So here you just got to watch out for these things because it bounces down below where you can't get to. So you just have to be aware of where it's going to come up at and try to counter it. Get the power-ups. But it's not too hard. So here, if you drop these lavas at the right time, you can take out a lot of these balls, but it is kind of dangerous. I wasn't too successful with that, but the idea was to put the lava on the ground first, and then the balls will kind of bounce into the lava. The idea is not to try to drop the lava down on top of them like some of the other stages, because if you do that, I think you'll just kill yourself. I don't think there's a safe way to do that I found. So you want to drop it down on the ground first and let them kind of come into it. Now this is another stage where you want to kill shit off in sections. So, kind of deal with one section at a time if you can. And try to do that for all of them. Clean out all the bombs and all that shit. It's really not too hard if you do it that way. See, this was a pretty quick one by doing it in sections. This stage, I believe, is easy, but it's just low visibility because of all the thundercloud balls that you got to watch out for. So, you're going to have to do it with your vision obscured. But there's not that much shit to manage on screen, so it's not too bad. This one could be a little tricky to get right, but, once you realize that standing at the edge of these green glowing barriers and then just dropping the shit in the middle, as you see me doing, if you do that on both sides as needed, you'll probably get them all, even if you're not super accurate. So just keep doing it. Eventually, they will probably get caught up in that. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get the last few balls, but it is very doable. But that one could be a little tricky to get right. Just don't stand under the shit. Initially I was trying to shoot it and run under it, and I was dying a lot because of that. So it's better just to stand at the edge and unleash them from the edge. Drop them in the middle. This one could be kind of tricky because of all the platforms. It's hard to reach some of them, and you do have to use the springs to jump up on some of the platforms, as you'll see me doing. It's good to take out a few of them from the bottom first, otherwise it's very dangerous to go on the platforms. So you want to try to take these out first, if you can get a clean shot. That's the hard part, is trying to get a clean shot on these things initially, so it's a little tricky. So now that these things are clear, you can start using the platforms now and getting up on these things to take out the final 2 fucking balls at the top. It's easy to do once you take out those other things lingering around. Otherwise, you don't really have room to move. You cannot jump in this game, so you have to use the springs to get up to the platforms. You also don't have any mid-air control, so once you're launched in the air, you can't move around in mid-air. So you have to use the springs pretty accurately, but it's not hard. So this is another stage that gives you some timers, so you can just utilize that. Take out most of these things. You may want to go up at the top to take out some of them, but I don't know if I even did that. I don't think I did. So yeah, stick to one side at a time. This one can be a little tricky, but they do give you a lot of power-ups. You do have to be aggressive and move pretty quick. So this one was kind of tough. But use the power-ups and take out the left and right sides first. And then, you're going to want to try to go up and take out everything in the middle, but it can be kind of hard. If you don't activate the timer at the right time, those things will be right on your ass. So you won't be able to actually shoot them. So you do have to, kind of get it just right. But you can get a shield, too, which will help. You do have to be aggressive on that stage, though. So in this stage, clear out the barriers on the left and right first, and then you can start doing the platforming that you need to do. So now take out these ones where there's only one one little barrier. You want to take those out first and destroy the little ball in there. Or I guess you can take out one of these if you want. It doesn't matter, but you do have to eliminate these things. So eventually you need to go up here and take these things out. But it's pretty clear to see what I'm doing now. Once you've kind of cleaned up the area, you can move around easier. It is a little irritating. The platforming is not too good in this game. It's kind of sloppy, so a little bit of a pain in the ass. But you can walk across when the platforms touch whatever wall. So if you need to just walk, you can. That's how you get to that. So now you want to try to take these things out, and eventually you're going to get the flamethrowers. It's pretty easy to dodge through and get the flamethrower, and then once you get the flamethrower, you can take out most of them pretty easily. You do want to be aggressive. The timers are a little tight, but it's really not too bad. So now we have the semi-final boss. So this one, you have some of these bouncing bubbles where, when you hit them, they bounce around. But those ones are actually pretty good because they're easy to manipulate. You can bounce them away from where you're at. But it can be hard to get in the openings at times, so you may have to destroy some of the shit to make it a little easier to get your shots in. But really, I didn't find it too difficult. There are a lot of these like lightning bubbles though, so once you destroy the barrier around them, just be aware that the lightning will come out. This one does move faster, so it can be tricky to get some of your shots in, but it's really not too hard to survive compared to some of the regular stages that were much, much harder than this. So this should be pretty easy compared to some of the other stages by this point. So once you destroy all the tentacles, I think there might be one more left. But you get some good weapons and shields and shit like that too, so it's really not too difficult. So I believe, again, you just have to hit this thing 3 times. You usually want to hit it when it's trying to attack you. This one can be a little spastic because it teleports around a lot, so it can be a little spastic to try to hit. It's not too difficult. So now this is the final world of the game. And there are some tricky stages, but mainly the final boss is the main challenge. So here's where you want to disable your rapid fire function. If you're using a controller that has turbo, you're probably not going to want to use it anymore for the rest of the game because a lot of the stages have this beam weapon. And the beam is awesome, but it requires you to hold the button down instead of tapping. So, if you want the beam to fully come out, you need to hold it down. If you tap it, you'll pretty much won't be able to use the weapon almost at all. So, but the beam is really good. If you use it right, you can clear out a lot of these things in these. You want to try to get them in large columns and take out as many as you can, because you only get a few shots with a lot of the beams. So, though I think I had quite a bit of ammo here, but it does waste fast. But on some of the stages, you have to use the beam pretty precisely because you get very little ammo. So you might only get 2 or 3 shots. So I remember some of them had to be done pretty precise. But yeah, here just get the Gatling guns and try to take all these things out. They move pretty slow, but as long as you have a Gatling gun, you'll be all right because you won't have to worry about the lightning coming down. But, they can definitely, this area can be pretty dense, so you do have to be pretty aggressive. Still much easier in some of the early levels, though, where there was tons of these things moving really fast. And you only had that, base weapon. The timer's a little tight in this stage, though, I think, but... sometimes it's hard to destroy all the shit in the amount of time, so you do have to be aggressive, but aside from that, it's really not too difficult. So you get timers and beams here, which, Makes it fairly easy to take everything out, but it can be a little tricky because the timer is so low. Sometimes these levels can be a little tricky. You want to be aggressive. You really want to try to take out as much shit as you can with each beam shot. You don't want to wait. You definitely don't want to waste that beam and fire it where you're not getting a lot of kills with it. So you do want to group them together just right. Same thing with this. You want to group these balls together so that they all go into the fire pretty much as possible. Because you only get a few beam shots. It wastes very fast on this stage. So you want to try to group them together and use that lava as effective as possible. And you do have to do it really quick. This stage can be kind of tough. We're trying to get it within the time. Because a lot of times you have this slow little spear weapon and it's hard to take everything out. But as long as you're aggressive and you use the beams well with grouping everything together and, group everything together in that lava early on, you should be able to beat that stage. So now we have more of these like balls that bounce around when you hit them. So you just want to be aggressive. You get some throwing stars here, so that makes things pretty easy. Really not too hard of a level, but sometimes it is irritating waiting for these fucking things to finally get to you when you're waiting on the timer. So here you want to try to utilize these bombs to try to take out as many of these things as possible if you do it right. I didn't do it too well there, but I was still able to make the timer, so it really wasn't too bad. You also get like a little pellet gun, which makes things easier. I think the pellet gun has unlimited ammo, but it reloads, every few shots. But maybe not, because you can pick up multiple of them. Maybe they do have limited ammo. I'm not sure. I don't remember ever running out of ammo with them, though. So this one is actually very easy. The trick here, I didn't realize at first, is just bounce them all into the right side. That's all you got to do. So just bounce them all into the right side. They'll get completely eliminated by that falling fire. So it's a very easy stage when you know that. So with this stage, you pretty much just want to get the power-ups and try to clear out the left and right sides. Maybe clear out one side at a time. You just have to be kind of aggressive. Of course, the flamethrower is very limited. It's great if the bubbles are within range, but when they're too high up on the screen, you're kind of fucked by the flamethrower. So you have to, waste it or get another weapon. Or, of course, just go up to where the other bubbles are at if you can safely get up there. So again, I like to focus on one side at a time, and this beam is really, really good. If you do it just right, you see you can take out a shit ton of them. You see I pretty much eliminated all the red ones in 2 shots. So try to group them together the best you can like that. And that's going to make it much easier. Otherwise, this stage can be tough because there's a lot of these things to take out. They also move really slow, which is a huge waste on your timer when you have to wait for them to kind of give you a gap to move back in, as you can see here. It really wastes out the timer. It's a pain in the ass. So, be aware that the flamethrower also does kind of move to the right and left sides. It has kind of a motion that it goes left to right. So eventually it can hit stuff on the right too. It just takes a little while to get there. So now we have like the bombs and the throwing stars. So I believe this stage is pretty easy. You may want to get the shield. As you see, I fucked up there. I think that was the only death that I may have missed in editing. I haven't actually watched these videos yet after editing them, so there may be a few deaths that I didn't get. But yeah, this stage is pretty easy. They give you plenty of time and a lot of power-ups. This stage can be a little tricky. You want to try to route these things into an area where there's a lot of bombs. I mean, that's pretty much the best way to do it, I think, but it is a little tricky. I didn't have a great strategy for this one, but I tried to, kind of route these things into where a lot of the bombs were at. and that seemed to work well enough. I did end up having to take most of them out, though, with regular shots. But we've dealt with plenty of these things before, so it's not too hard to deal with. When those things are close to the ground, you do have to move very quick, though, because obviously the lightning bolt will get to you very quickly. So that can be a little dangerous. So yeah, you got a bunch of these bouncing things, and encased in the middle is the bombs, which makes it pretty easy. Because when they explode, they take out the other balls. You got a shitload of time on this stage too. Really easy stage. I think the last one I had to lure out, though, by moving around. I think eventually it did come out, if I remember right. I don't remember how I got to it, but I don't think the timer was helping things. Okay, see, it did kind of release. You see, those things went down somehow. Maybe I had to step on both of those buttons to make the things lower or some shit. I mean, watching that now, I'm not even sure what happened, like why the bubble came out at the end. But there's probably a way to trigger it early. Maybe step on both buttons if I had to guess. But I'm really not sure. I just know that I beat it, and I wasn't really thinking much about it. So on this stage, I found it pretty useful to just ride one of the corners initially. You don't want to stay in the corner the whole time, but I pretty much just stay in a corner for most of the stage, and it really thinned out a lot of the bubbles. It was pretty safe for most of the stages to stay on either the left or right corner and just fire a bunch of shots rapidly. And that actually cleared out probably like half of the balls. So I recommend staying on one side like I did and just keep shooting. And then after a while, when there's a bunch of the small ones out, then you want to actually move away from the corner and start fighting normally. That's what I did. So this one gives you a shitload of power-ups. It's really not too hard. When you got fucking flamethrowers, shotguns, you got pretty much everything here. This is like a free stage. This is right before the final boss, so I think they wanted to give you an easy stage. Because the final boss is the most difficult stage. It's quite difficult. It's a long fight. But I can break down how it works. I think I got some good strats for it. So this is the final boss. For the final boss, first you need to fire out a purple missile to disable the robot that's creating the shield. Once you disable that shield, then you start firing the green missile. So that's pretty much the whole style of the fight. So the way you know when the shield is going to come back up is you look at the purple robot. When the purple robot's meter fills up, you'll see that little meter filling up. When it fully fills up, the shield will be back on again. So what you want to try to do is balance that out. So, don't use the purple missiles when you don't need them. If you got a lot of time on the meter, then just fire off the green missiles. And eventually you'll get into a rhythm with that by watching that. And then you won't be wasteful with that. Because you want to try to save them up, until when you need them. Same thing here. You gotta destroy the purple UFOs to disable the shield. So you destroy one of the purple UFOs, it will disable the shield, and then watch the meter again. And of course, then in that time period, you're focusing on the greens again. For this part with the bombs, you can pretty much just zigzag and fire off all the missiles if you time your movements right. And that's just going to be learning it. Once you learn where everything is coming up, you can take out shit pretty fast. You'll be ready for everything that comes up because you'll memorize it pretty much. So it's pretty much memorizing when to use the purple missiles or disable the purple UFOs. Just to keep, you want to try to keep the shield down. Kind of chain that together and keep the shield down as long as possible. So you can get in those greens. Like your greens are always going to be your attacks. So when you take out a green UFO, that's going to be an attack. And when you take out a purple one, it's going to be disabling the shield. Now, of course, if you take out the purple ones when the shield is already down, it's just going to reset the meter, the shield meter. So it's really not worth doing that unless the meter is about to go back up again. And if you get good at doing that, you can actually fire a lot of the attack missiles and get a lot of hits in. And you can beat the boss faster that way. So, you want to get used to keeping an eye on those meters. And you just have to get good at dodging. You just got to memorize how to dodge everything. because all the sections are pretty much just the same every time you play. So as long as you memorize how to dodge everything, you'll get good at these sections. And if you beat the boss, faster, I think you don't even have to do some of the end sections. I think I avoided doing some of the end sections because I beat the boss pretty fast. So you will get good at it. The main tip is to just watch that purple meter and, keep the shields down. And then for this last part, just fire at it. I don't even think it attacks you, but just try to, get a Gatling gun or one of the power-ups and just kill it off. There are some power-ups during the fight like shields and stuff, so be aware of those. I use the Gatling gun as my favorite power-up, so I recommend getting that because I like the Gatling gun because it makes it so you can fire rapidly and take shit out. So it made it easy to take out the purple UFOs and the green ones. So I recommend just memorizing that final boss fight and, knowing when to unleash the purple attacks and the green ones, Because like I said, if the shield is already down, there's no sense in firing off destroying the purple UFOs. Save them and save the purple missiles for when you need them. But yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.